I was told from the detective that I would receive justice for Dylan, even though they can't really get Bubba for poisoning Dylan, but I would get justice. I never got justice. It just got swept under the rug because New York has, at the time was COVID, bail reform and all this. I had to see this man posting on Facebook, taking selfies, living his life. And you know how hard that is to see somebody that murdered your child and you see them on Facebook living their life? I have 6 children. Dylan was my oldest. He was on the wrestling team in high school. He loved to record music. He loved to write music.
I say, boom, boom, clear the room. My lyrics like a gun, go one in your ear and out the other. I'm on point, my brother.
Dylan suffered from schizophrenia, and he lived in New York when he passed away. He started showing signs of schizophrenia when he was about 20, and he was acting out. And so that's why he decided to move to New York. And he was living in a place like a group home. And he was working. He finally got stabilized, and he was getting a shot in his arm. And it made him feel very slow. He was a very active person, always doing things. And when he started taking the medication, it was slowing him down. So he felt like he couldn't do the things that he used to do before. He would get a shot like once a month or every couple of months, he would get a shot. And that would just help him not seeing things. And he started seeing things, exhibiting some angry behavior, sometimes, different behaviors. But he was going through that for a while. And then he started, once he was on the medication, he started like working and just doing his everyday thing. And he was doing fine. And then all of a sudden, he started calling everybody up in the family, asking for money. And I said, Dylan, why are you asking everybody for money? You have Social Security, you have a job, you have a place to live. Why are you asking for money all of a sudden? And he said, this guy next door blessed me with $100. And I said, why is he giving you money? Why is this person giving you money? And he said, well, he was giving us some free cocaine. So I was like, what? I said, are your father, my father was an addict, and he died at 48. And I was like, do you want to be like Grandpa Eddie? You better stop this right now, and I was going off on him. And he's like, Ma, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Fast forward, I found out that my sister, who was taking care of Dylan, like minding over him, she went ahead and paid off this guy next door that was giving Dylan cocaine. And I didn't know about it till later. Then after that, Dylan stopped. He stopped using. He just completely went cold turkey. 4 days after his 29th birthday, he called me up. It was 9 o'clock at night. And he said, Mom, he's like, can I get $10? And I said, for what? And he said, cigarettes and beer. And I said, Dylan, are you sure that's what you're going to do with the money? And he said, yeah, Ma, I just want cigarettes and beer. And as much as I didn't want to give them the $10, but I gave them the $10 because I felt like I was damned if I did and damned if I didn't. And he also told me, he's like, get in touch with my dad. I want you to take his phone number, because his father was suffering. He just got cured from cancer, but he was still in remission. So he's like, I want you to check on my dad. And I said, all right, Dylan, I'm going to cash app you this $10. So he said, okay, Mom, I love you. He says, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I said, can I call you in the morning? He says, no, I have work. Call me tomorrow, after work. I said, okay. When I hung up that phone, I had like a really ill feeling. Like I couldn't explain the feeling. And so the next morning I wanted to call him, and I remembered he told me, no, Mom, I'm going to be going to work. So about 2:00 in the afternoon the next day, I was going to the store to go get detergent, and I seen this cat that was next door to me that was a stray, and this lady comes out, and she's like, oh, we're going to have to put this cat down. He's sick, and I felt bad about it. So I'm driving. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, poor cat, and I'm driving, and all of a sudden I'm in the car, and I'm just crying hysterically about this cat. And I'm like I'm like talking, having a fight with myself, like, Tammy, why are you so upset about this stray cat? So I go get my detergent. I come home. My sister calls me, and she doesn't really call me that much because we have like a love-hate relationship, but she called me, and she said, Tammy, and I said, what? She said, Dylan's heart stopped 3 times, and I made the most blood-curdling scream. I think that most moms and parents that gone through this have that scream. And she was like, oh, but they got him in the hospital. There's hope. There's hope. They got his heart started. So now I'm in Florida. She's in New York. She said, hang on. So we didn't hear anything. My son went down to the hospital because he lives in New York too. My oldest son, Klaus, he went to the hospital and he's like, Ma, this doesn't look good. Then Dylan's dad, the next day, put a text out saying that Dylan was declared brain dead. So I got on the next plane, as fast as I could to get down to New York. When I went to, it was Jamaica Hospital where he was. I went there. As soon as I walked into the room, I knew my son was gone, you just know. And the doctors took me into a room and they told me, like they said before, all medical intervention is done. The only thing we can do is donate, if you would like to, give the gift of life and donate his organs. So I agreed, and Dylan's father agreed. At the time, my sister, she was his healthcare proxy. My son's healthcare proxy. So then we were arguing in the hospital because at first she didn't want to do it. And I was kind of like, I had to ask her permission to, donate my son's organs. Like she became the head honcho, and it was kind of hard. And at that time, I was like, you know what, I got to keep my focus. This is about my son. So finally, after going at her, saying me and Dylan's dad agreed that we want to donate his organs, she finally said, okay. And, they told us to leave and come back for a little while. And I had left. I came back, and I was there first, and they said they had to take Dylan into another room, check his heart, because if he goes into cardiac arrest, he could not donate his organs. So I remember us arguing in the hospital. She was like, how dare you, let them send him in, before I got back here. And I was like, did you forget that I'm his mother? And she was like, where were you? And then it was like, then my kids were there. They all came. And then the doctors were talking to them. And they're like, you just want body parts. Give us back our brother. It was like craziness. But after all the craziness subsided, we all got together. We donated his organs. He had a beautiful funeral. It was during COVID time. I was allowed to have a full funeral and full burial. And, that was it. And then it was back to trying to be normal and going back to life and doing everyday things. And I decided that I wasn't going to give in to my grief, that I was going to try to do something in Dylan's memory and to keep myself sane. So I started off finding lost, first in grief groups. From there, I went to Lost Voices of Fentanyl. And there was the first time they were going to have a rally, China rally in Washington, D.C. And I went there and I was like, wow, there's a lot of people that are like me. I thought I was like the only person that this was happening to. From there, I started just doing graphics. I started making graphics for the moms, the angel moms. And so I got asked to do graphics for Angel Mom Community. And then I started working, that also branches off to Fentanyl Angel Moms. And I started moderating those groups, getting to know more moms, talking with them. And then I was asked to join the Fentanyl Awareness Coalition. And that's when I started just taking my grief into advocacy. And I found that very therapeutic for me to get over the loss of my son. Bubba, I think I told you, the drug dealer that was next door to my son's group home that gave him the drugs. Bubba, his name is, I don't know. Dylan kept a lot of notes. Like, he was keeping notes about how much money he was giving this guy on paper, because he was very, as much as like whatever, he was always like very honest. Dylan was a very honest person, and he was like, keeping down records, what he was paying Bubba. So now a lot of dealers, use those throwaway phones so that it's very difficult for you to track them on the cell phones. That's a lot of issues that a lot of parents go through, like trying to link the dealer to the phone number because they use these burner phones. Well, Bubba was very cocky, and Bubba had the same phone for a long time. And so we were able to go on Snapchat and get Bubba's phone number. And then Bubba started liking my daughter's Instagram pictures. So we linked him to his phone number. And from the calls and from the time that Dylan asked him for what he thought was cocaine, that landed up being fentanyl. I know Dylan was clean at that time, because when we got back his autopsy, he didn't have any marijuana in his system, anything. It was just 1.6, like a little grain of salt of fentanyl in his system. So I knew that he wasn't lying to me, that he, really did stop using, and he had like a relapse, and so anyway, with Bubba, I had to wait 6 months for Dylan's autopsy to come back in order to say that he did die of fentanyl. And I went to New York, and I went down to the precinct because I had all Dylan's information. We linked the dealer to my son's phone. We had the Snapchat. We had the conversations. We had all that. So I went to the precinct, and I said, hey, listen, I'm down here from Florida. I want to get somebody, a detective or somebody on my son's case. This man poisoned my son, and I want justice for this. So they're like, oh, lady, you can't come here after 6 months and, expect us to do something. And I said, look, I live in Florida. I came down to New York. I had to wait for the autopsy. So they're like, oh, lady, they were like, we don't have time for this. And then I saw like this little saint thing on the wall, and I'm starting praying. And I'm like, listen, can you please just look up the address? I give them the address. First they said, we don't see no 911 call here. Then finally they looked, they found it. So they said, all right, we're going to do you a favor. We're going to call narcotics and see if we can get you a detective. So they did. They ended up getting me this Detective K, who was, and that's not his real name, so Detective K. He lost a brother to an overdose, so he was very compassionate and understanding. So I gave him all the information that I had, and he did do a sting. And Bubba sold fentanyl and heroin to undercover police officers. And when he raided his place, Bubba was not there. Then he called me and said that Bubba was on the run. Then Bubba landed up calling 911 because he had a dead body in his house, which was one of his buddies. This guy, I'll say Joe. This guy, Joe. So the detective told me, he said, listen, you know, he had somebody else die in his house. So after a while, I was on Facebook and I'm fishing around. I saw this guy's, Facebook page. I saw his girlfriend and his brother on his Facebook page. So I started messaging the brother. The brother had some mental disability, so he was a little afraid to respond to me. So it took about 4 months. And then the guy, Joey's girlfriend, she messaged me and she said, I can tell you everything about Bubba. And this guy, Joey, inherited a lot of money. His parents passed away and he inherited the parents' house and he sold the house and he had a lot of money. He was an addict. Bubba took him for all his money, like dissipated all his money. She showed me pictures of the apartment, of all the drugs that Bubba had in his house. Unfortunately, because that young man was an addict, they just took it as like, oh, well, just somebody else that just died of, an overdose. And I feel like New York, that's why I just been going to New York. I just went to New York about a little over a month ago to try to get New York to say that, this is what's going on with fentanyl is to be murder, because my son's murderer is still walking the streets, as far as I know. And as much as it was very frustrating to me, because I felt like I did as much as I possibly could do. And even if I did get justice, it's still not going to bring my son back. But I just wanted like a vindication, like respect for my son. And God knows how many other people this man has killed. I just keep on advocating. I just keep on, doing my thing. Now I work doing billboard rallies where son and all our Angel moms get together. We do billboard rallies. I work with people who suffer from mental illness, and I feel that's like giving back to my son as well, because my son suffered from mental illness. All my members, as we call them members, know about Dylan. They want to advocate with me. They know about fentanyl, and they were even cheering me on, coming today and doing these rallies, and they want to come to the rallies. They want to do them with me. And my boss even pitched in. He got me connected to people that can get me a lot of Narcan. So I'm going to this next rally. I've been giving out Narcan to people. The last rally that I did, we were giving Narcan to EMTs, believe it or not, cops. This one young man came up to me and he said, "Can I get 3 boxes of Narcan?" So I'm like, "Sure." And he goes, "I just want to tell you something. Thank you." He goes, "Because I overdosed last week and I wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for Narcan." And he said, "If somebody finding me he worked in Burger King." And then he came back again. He said, "Can I get some more Narcan? Because my boss wants it." And I said, "Sure." So I think this is what helps me now with my grief. And I know that my son is shining down on me. I know I think he's proud of me. I think he's proud of his mom. And, it's just, sometimes it's unfortunate that sometimes things like this have to happen in your life to even see how much I know of myself. Like, I didn't even know that. If somebody would have told me like 10 years ago, you're going to lose a child and you're going to fentanyl, I would have been like, "You're crazy." Or I probably thought I was going to die. Like, I didn't think I could ever handle the loss of a child. And it's a pain that'll never go away. But every day that I talk to another parent, or I advocate, or I spread awareness, it helps me honor my son, if that makes any sense. Dylan, when he was 18 years old, he used to write music. He used to make little rap songs and stuff like that. So it's Hope. And then he has another song, it's called Top of the Line Boss. So he was like trying to be like an upcoming rapper. He had like, you know, hip hop, R&B. Dylan loved singing. Like he expressed, you know, his love for music doing that. And it helped him with his mental illness. His schizophrenia came out later on, you know, like in his late 2023 it came out. And I think his music came from he suffered a lot. There was a time where he wasn't speaking with his dad and he was like in the streets, he was hanging out in the streets. He was homeless. We couldn't, you know, he was in the hospital a couple of times for alcohol poisoning, but I think he took all that pain or whatever and he like put it into his music. So the Hope song, I played it, I think when he passed away, I want to say I must have played that song about 500 times, just playing it over and over and over again. Somebody probably would have thought I'm crazy. But you know, he loved God. He was a spiritual person. And it's funny because when I gave out those CDs in Washington, D.C., I had met a mom from Puerto Rico, and she was there with her son. And her son almost passed away from fentanyl, but he lived. He was caught in enough time. So he came to the rally. And they happened to be in the same hotel as me. And I said, Dylan, to myself, I said, if you know I'm here, please show me a sign. So we were walking back to our hotel. It was pouring rain, and we ended up stopping at a bench. And Dylan liked Pokemon. He liked anime. He liked all that kind of stuff. So it's pouring rain, and this guy, Derek, the one that almost died from an overdose, he was sitting by the bench next to me, and he goes, look at this. And he picks up one Pokemon card. So I said, I guess I got my sign. So I also gave Derek and his mom a CD of the music, Hope. And about a couple months after that we met from Washington, D.C., her son used to play the CD all the time. And they had just finished talking about Dylan. And they went outside, and like they said, like the sky was like she said it looked like angels. She videotaped it for me. So at first she's sending me this videotape, and I'm like, is this really crazy? Like, what is she sending me? And she's like, look, it's Dylan in the sky. And I literally, his face was in the sky. And then it happened another time. Anytime, like, a lot of people would play his music, like, he would love that people play. It's like, I don't know, that he knows that they're playing his music. But she showed me the video, and at first I was like, I didn't see the face. And then I looked at it again. I'm like, oh, my goodness. So his song, Hope, gives me hope that one day I will see him again, and that I'm just his mission here was done, but mine isn't. So I just got to keep on going and just be there for my other children. And it was very hard on them too, losing their brother, you know. And so I got to have hope like him.